Thank you for joining Wars of the Roses. As we continue with Part 25, the Greater Holy Synod, Book 5, the written word of Kabalism, second period from the Doctrine and Literature of the Kabalah, by Arthur Edward Waite. 3. The Greater Holy Synod, the Book of Concealment has been simplified to the utmost in the preceding account. It may be now added that it is anonymous. It quotes no rabbinical writers and has no references by which a clue to its date may be obtained. It has, however, two characteristics which give it the appearance of a much older document than those which follow it immediately, and are designed, as already said, to develop and expound it. These are its rudeness and the mutilations which it would appear to have undergone. The first translator, Rosenroth, supplies the gaps and omissions thus occasioned by conjectural words and passages placed within brackets. But even with these, it is in an exceedingly faulty state. The treatise now under consideration is in most respects entirely different. It possesses almost a literary aspect, begins in narrative form, methodizes the ensuing dialogues in a manner which is perfectly explicit and stands in need of few emendations. It deals, of course, with the barbarous symbolism of the preceding book, and so far is admittedly repellent to modern taste, a fact which has been noted by at least one sympathetic critic who was himself an elegant and highly suggestive writer. The first point, which otherwise calls for notice, is that the Greater Sacred Synod claims Rabbi Simeon ben Yochai as the author of the Book of Concealment, and itself contains the discourses of this master in Israel, delivered in a field beneath trees in the presence of his disciples, namely Rabbi Eleazar, his son, Rabbi Abba, Rabbi Jehuda, Rabbi Josi, the son of Jacob, Rabbi Isaac, Rabbi Chiskia, the son of Rav, Rabbi Chia, Rabbi Josi, and Rabbi Jisa. These are historical names belonging to the period which succeeded the destruction of Jerusalem. For an account of Rabbi Simeon himself, we must have recourse to Tract Sabbath of the Talmud, Babylonian recension, which contains the narrative which I will here give in its substance. On a certain occasion, Ar Jehuda, Ar Josi, and Ar Shimeon were sitting together, and with them also was Jehuda, the son of proselytes. Ar Jehuda opened the conversation, saying, "How beautiful are the works of this nation, the Romans. They have established markets, they have built bridges, they have opened bathing houses." Whereupon Ar Josi was silent, but Ar Shimeon ben Yochai answered, saying, "All these things have they instituted for their own sake. Their markets are gathering places for harlots, they have built baths for their own enjoyment, and bridges to collect tolls from those who cross them." Jehuda, the son of proselytes, repeated this conversation, and it came to the ears of Caesar, who proclaimed, "Jehuda, who extols us, shall be extolled. Josi, who said nothing, shall be exiled to Sepphoris, that is Cyprus. Shimeon, who has disparaged us, shall be put to death." Ar Shimeon and his son then went out and hid themselves in the lecture hall, but afterwards in a cave where a miracle took place, a date tree and a spring of water being raised up for them. They laid aside their garments and sat covered with sand up to their necks, studying the whole time and assuming their vestures only at prayer time, for fear that the same might wear out. In this wise they spent 12 years in the cave, when Elijah came to the opening and said, "Who will inform the son of Yochai that Caesar is dead and his decree is annulled?" Hereupon they left the cave. The secret wisdom embodied in the Zohar is supposed to have been the fruit of the long seclusion enforced upon Ar Simeon by the Roman decree. The Talmud mentions expressly the learning obtained during this period, but without specifying its kind. According to the tradition of the Kabbalists, the Book of Concealment was the first form in which it was reduced to writing. The discourses of the Greater Sacred Synod were recorded by Rabbi Abba, and so also in the case of the Lesser Synod. When the conversation was about to begin, a voice heard in the air showed that the supernal synod had assembled in heaven to hearken, and the commentators add that the souls of the just gathered round the speakers, coming from their rest in paradise and the holy Shekinah of the divine presence. The explanations and developments concern the world in its void state before the manifestation of the supreme countenance, the confirmations of that countenance, or macroprosopus, as also of microprosopus, the lesser countenance, and after what manner the inferior depends from the superior. It must be said that the expounding and the extension neither are nor assume to be explanatory in the sense that they unfold the real significance of the symbolism. As a fact, the treatise ends, like all treatises concerned with the mysteries of initiation, by saying that he is blessed who has known and beheld the concealed words, and does not err therein. In an account like the present, which does not even pretend to be synoptic, it is impossible to attempt a tabulation of the singular typology with which the Greater Synod is concerned, and it should be noted in this connection that the few modern writers on Kabalism who claim to speak magisterially and from within an occult circle of knowledge may have shown us glimpses in one or two rare instances of the system on which the typology is constructed, but have done nothing to elucidate and therefore to recommend it to our understanding. It is a question which it is hard to approach from the side of the literal sense, and to the occult student, in the absence of initiation, the esoteric aspects of the literature are chiefly a subject of curious speculation. Fortunately, it has other aspects which make it deserving of consideration, or there would be no purpose in the present inquiry. The unbalanced forces of the universe, the world in its void state, are considered under the symbolism of the kings who reigned in Edom before a king was raised up to rule over the children of Israel, that is to say, before the emanation of Microprosopus. At that time there was neither beginning nor end, and the Edomite kings were without subsistence. According to Rosenroth, this signifies the fall of creatures partly into a state of rest, such as that of matter, and partly into one of inordinate activity, such as that of the evil spirits, in which case we are dealing not so much with cosmology as with the legends of souls. So also when the Greater Synod represents the Ancient of Ancients creating and producing the essence of light, the same interpreter who speaks with the authority of immense knowledge, as regards at least the literature of Kabalism, observes that the reference is to the law, in other words, to the letters of the alphabet, by the transpositions of which the law was recorded subsequently. For the rest, symbolism of this order is not simplified by its multiplication, and the record of Rabbi Simeon's discourses is only the Book of Concealment, dilated in a glass of vision. Compare, for example, the description of Macroprosopus with the indications on the same subject contained in the previous section. White are his garments as snow, and his aspect is as a face manifested. He is seated upon a throne of glittering brightness, that he may subdue them. The whiteness of his bald head is extended into 40,000 worlds, and from the light of the whiteness thereof shall the just receive 400 worlds in the world to come. The vast countenance itself is said to extend into 370 myriads of worlds. The brain concealed within the skull is the hidden wisdom, and the influence of this wisdom passes through a channel below and issues by 32 paths. The hair of Macroprosopus radiates into 410 worlds, which are known only to the Ancient One. The parting of the hair is described as a path shining into 270 worlds, and therefrom another path diffuses its light, and in this shall the just shine in the world to come. When the forehead of Macroprosopus, which is the benevolence of benevolences, is uncovered, the prayers of the Israelites are received, and the time of its uncovering is at the offering of evening prayer on the Sabbath. The forehead extends into 270,000 lights of the supernal Eden, for there is an Eden which shines in Eden. It is withdrawn in concealment and is unknown to all but the Ancient One. The eyes of the vast countenance differ from other eyes, having neither lids nor brows, because the guardian of the supernal Israel knows no sleep. The two eyes shine as a single eye, and were that eye to close even for one moment, the things which are could subsist no longer. Hence it is called the open eye, ever smiling, ever glad. In the nose of Macroprosopus, one of the nostrils is life, and the other is the life of life. With regard to the beard of the vast countenance, called otherwise the decoration of all decorations, neither superiors nor inferiors, neither men nor prophets nor saints have beheld it, for it is the truth of all truths. Its 13 forms are represented as powerful to subdue and to soften all the stern decrees of the judgments. 13 chapters of the Greater Synod are devoted to the consideration of this subject, including the number of the locks in each portion, the number of hairs in each lock, and the number of worlds attributed to them. This ends the discourse concerning Macroprosopus, and the treatise proceeds thence to the consideration of the lesser countenance. The conformations of Microprosopus are disposed from the forms of the vast countenance, and his components are expanded on either side under a human form. When the lesser countenance gazes on the greater, all inferiors are restored in order, and the lesser is vaster for the time being. There is an emanation from the greater towards the skull of the lesser, and thence to numberless lower skulls, and all together reflect the brilliance of the whiteness of this emanation towards the Ancient of Days. From the brain of Macroprosopus an influence descends, from the hair an emanation of splendor, from the forehead a benevolence, from the eyes a radiance, from the nostrils a spirit and the spirit of life, from the cheeks gladness, and all these fall upon the lesser countenance. From the brain of Microprosopus there are emanations of wisdom, emanations of understanding, and emanations of knowledge. In each lock of the hair of Microprosopus there are 1,000 utterances. His forehead is the inspection of inspection, and when it is uncovered, sinners are visited with judgment. For the lesson of the Greater Synod is that wrath may dwell with Microprosopus, but not in the Ancient of Days. So also the eyes of the lesser countenance possess lids. When the lids are closed, judgments subdue the Israelites, and the Gentiles have dominion over them. But the eyes, when they are open, are beautiful as those of the dove, for they are then illuminated by the good eye. With one of those pathetic touches which soften occasionally for a moment the unyielding lines of Kabbalistic symbolism, it is said that 2 tears dwell in the eyes of the lesser countenance, and the Holy of Holies, when he wills to have mercy on the Israelites, sends down these 2 tears to grow sweet in the great sea of wisdom, and they issue therefrom in mercy upon the chosen people. The special seat of severity in Microprosopus is the nose, and judgment goes forth therefrom, except when the forehead of the vast countenance is uncovered, when mercy is found in all things. As in the case of the Ancient of Ancients, the discourse appertaining to the beard of Microprosopus fills many chapters, full of strange scholia on various passages of Scripture, and details minutely the conformations of its 9 divisions, what it conceals of the lesser countenance, what it permits to be manifested, with observations on the descent of a holy and magnificent oil from the beard of Macroprosopus, and a general description of the correspondences and differences of the 2 adornments. It should be observed that the body of Microprosopus is androgen, and as at this point the symbolism is concerned very largely with the sexual organs, it will be obvious that it becomes still more discordant with modern feeling and exceeds occasionally what it is considered permissible to express in English. A modern symbologist has said that nature is not ashamed of her emblems, and there is no doubt that for the Kabbalist, the body of man was peculiarly sacred, whence for him there would be nothing repellent in dealing exhaustively with its typology. But it will be unnecessary in a descriptive summary to do more than allude to it. The student who desires to pursue the subject must be referred to the Latin version. The sum of the whole treatise may be given in the words of the original. The Ancient of Ancients is in Microprosopus. All things are one. He was all things, he is all things, he will be all things, he shall know no change, he knoweth no change, he hath known no change. Thus God in manifestation is not really separable from God in concealment, and if the symbolism depict him in the likeness of humanity, it is by way of similitude and analogy. At the conclusion of the Greater Synod, we are told that 3 of the company died during the deliberations, and their souls were beheld by the remainder carried by angels, behind the veil expanded above. Amidst all its obscurity and uncouthness, there are sublime touches in this treatise. The Kabalah is perhaps the first of all books which appeared in the Western world, reciting with no uncertain voice that God is altogether without mutation and vicissitude, that wrath and judgment are of man alone, placing thus a new construction on the divine warning, "Judge not, lest ye be judged," and showing also the higher significance of the not less divine promise, "I will repay." Never for the true Kabbalist could this mean that God would repay the sinner in his own spirit, outrage for outrage, hate for hate. The repayment of God is the compensation of the everlasting justice or the gratuity of the everlasting bounty. In a sense, the writers of the Zohar anticipated the most liberal conclusions of modern eschatology. Amidst the firebrands of the papal church, it promulgated for the first time the real meaning of the forgiveness of sins. Thank you for watching, and please don't forget to share, like, subscribe, and comment, and if you can, please consider donating to Wars of the Roses. Links to PayPal and Patreon are in the description. Thank you so very much.